And joining me now is former federal prosecutors Gene Rossi and Joseph Moreno, as well as CNN opinion contributor and former House Republican Investigative Committee counsel Sophia Nelson, and former Trump White House Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Matthews. So Joseph, so much more detail in this indictment, but really, at the end of the day, this is about Trump. This is about Trump directing what really is a conspiracy that goes beyond just his closest trusted aide, but now has entangled a third co-defendant in an effort to obscure and to hide, and even to get his lawyers to lie to the federal government.
It's a shame about the junior employees in Trump's employ, because it seems like he has this way of entangling people in his problems and then casting them aside. And he'll pay for their lawyers as long as they keep their mouths shut. But basically, that's what the deal is.
I'm just going to jump in here, because as you bring up the lawyers and Trump paying for it, there's a part of the indictment here that I think is really telling about how Trump approaches this. It says here that just over 2 weeks after the FBI discovered classified documents in the storage room in Trump's office, Nada called Trump employee number 5 and said the words to the effect of, "Someone just wants to make sure Carlos is good." Carlos is the third defendant now. And in response, that employee told Nada that Carlos de Oliveira was loyal and that he would not do anything to affect his relationship with Trump. That same day, Trump called de Oliveira and told him that Trump would get him an attorney.
Yeah, conflict of interest there, perhaps, right? I mean, look, Trump is free to pay for his employees' attorneys, but he's not free to tell them what to say, to expect silence, or to put any kind of pressure on them in leveraging the paying of that attorney. So I think a lot of these folks might say at some point, look, Trump's not really looking out for me. Maybe I should get my own lawyer.
What do you make of the fact that there's so much more evidence here of Trump being, as he's described in this indictment,
being Trump,
the boss? Yeah, I mean, it is almost this elaborate scene out of some kind of mob movie.
Yeah. When I was a federal prosecutor with my good friend here, one of the most wonderful charges was obstruction of justice. And the reason it's a great charge is you can be innocent and still commit obstruction of justice. But here we have great underlying evidence, allegations of violations of the Espionage Act, but the obstruction of justice goes to consciousness of guilt. And I have to say, paragraphs 75 to 91 of this indictment, if they are true, are absolutely devastating and help a prosecutor.
Tell us what those paragraphs describe.
Well, 75 to 91 talk about the DOJ attorney called one of the attorneys for Donald Trump on June 23rd, said you're going to get a grand jury subpoena for security footage. The next day, Walter Nada changes his travel plans. Yeah. Instead of going to Illinois, he goes to Mar-a-Lago, and the rest is history.
There's a part in that section there where he's texting people, telling them he's going down to Florida, and he's using the shushing emoji to describe the secrecy with which he is doing all of this, which, as we often in the legal world talk about people's state of mind, clearly the folks around Trump knew that they were doing something surreptitiously that was probably wrong, maybe even illegal for Trump.
No, I completely agree. I think that this just goes to show that Trump knew he was in the wrong for keeping these documents when he had no right to hold on to them. And he then put his, unfortunately, his staffers are now taking the fall for this as well, because he required them to engage in potentially illegal activity. Obviously, this is just an indictment right now, and, he needs to be proven guilty. But the facts in this indictment are pretty damning.
I think what Jack Smith is doing is brilliant. He's taken it step by step, right, Gene? And he's given us a little at a time so that we digest that this thing is bigger and more awful than we probably know by the time we get to the January 6 indictments, and I don't want to jump ahead. But I think that what you say is right, Gene. Those paragraphs are devastating, and it really goes to who Donald Trump is. I grew up in South Jersey, so this guy's been a staple in my life forever. I mean, I'm old enough to remember seeing him on the Enquirer magazines and everything else, but this is who he's been forever. He is for lack of a better way to put it, a mob boss. He tells you what to do. The minions do it. They don't stop to think about their liability. Only this time they're playing with, you said, espionage and federal crimes, and this is really serious stuff here. Very.
Look, he's been broadcasting, though, for a long time, right? Yeah. I mean, this argument that I don't believe I did anything wrong, right? I can declassify these documents. They're not kept any old place. The Secret Service is there guarding them. Well, if he really didn't think he did anything wrong, what we've now learned today really decimates that, because why are you deleting surveillance footage? Yeah. Why are you having boxes moved? Why are you hoping that your lawyers will kind of lie for you? Wink, wink. So I don't see now how he really maintains that argument, which already had its problems. Yeah. Now I feel like it's just toast.
It's worked for him his whole life, though, is my point. There's a pattern in practice with Donald Trump that starts way before the White House about how he runs his business, how he cuts his deals, how he gets out of things, how he explains things, how he doesn't pay people. This is not new, folks. America, you got to wake up.
So, Sarah, in terms of Trump's state of mind here, I mean, I think this superseding indictment adds more layers to the curiosity about what would have prompted him to take all these extra steps. As you pointed out, right after he first learned that there would be a subpoena for the documents, he basically has Walt Nauta move the boxes, and then has them try to delete the surveillance footage. Do you think that there's more here about why Trump really didn't want the feds to get these documents back?
I just simply think that he thought he had a right to hold on to them. The fact is, these are America's top secrets, and he was storing them in a bathroom in Mar-a-Lago. They had no place to be there with him. It's one thing if you accidentally, mistakenly take classified documents in a move, and obviously we've seen from Trump and his team, they've tried to conflate the issue with, former Vice President Pence accidentally taking classified material, President Biden taking classified material. The thing is, they returned that material once it was discovered. With Trump, he thought that he had a right to hold on to this, wanted to avoid giving it back, and then directed his employees to hide it from the federal government. And I think that that just goes to show he knew he was doing something wrong, and he's going to throw out every excuse at, out there to try to shift the blame.
And Jean, how significant is it, do you think, that we now believe, it looks like from the indictment, that the DOJ has this document that he was allegedly waving around at the Bedminster meeting that refers to attack plans against Iran? It did not show up in the first indictment. They referenced it, but they never charged him with that document. They have now charged him. How significant is that?
It is very significant because he had an interview, I think, with Sean Hannity or somebody on Fox, where he was saying it was a bunch of newspapers, articles, magazines, and now you have the document, the res justi, if you will, the corpus delicti, and it's the document that he was holding up and showing to people. And that, to me, of all the things he's done allegedly, and he's presumed innocent, of all the things he's done allegedly, is he's showing war plans, nuclear secrets to people who have no business having top secret clearance or hearing top secret information. That, to me, is the worst. But I got to follow up on something Joe said. And this goes to what Michael Cohen said. Donald Trump has an amazing ability to find people who are vulnerable, who will do whatever he says. And Michael Cohen said this several years ago. It's a brilliant, evil skill of his. And he picked on Nauta, and he picked on this Carlos de Oliveira, can't pronounce his name, but he found employees that will do anything for him. And that's a crime in itself.
And when you read they put in the superseding indictment the transcript of the interview that the FBI had at Carlos de Oliveira's home, and you read it and you see someone who is leaping before he's even asked a question. He says no. He's lying before he's even asked. That was so interesting to me about just the conduct of someone who is embroiled in a very serious case and his willingness to go there for Trump.
It's sad. I mean, I don't even know if he understands the magnitude of what he's gotten himself into now. Note that the lawyers didn't fall for this, right? At least most of us lawyers are pretty good about it to kind of cover ourselves and not be coerced by a client to lie on their behalf. They knew better, but it's unfortunate. I see it as a shame that these junior level individuals who are not attorneys, they're not skilled in the law, are willing to do exactly what you said, Abby, because, I mean, they're going to take the fall for this guy. And you know, it's a kind of a sad situation.
And Trump, I mean, it also explains why you have to charge
Abby,
the person who is the ringleader in this
It's also
case.
the power imbalance, to your point, Gene. They're enamored that they're working for Donald Trump. You know, he's been around, he's celebrity apprentice, he's all these things. So, you know, just help me out, I got you. You know, maybe this will open a door for me. I think that people get caught up in the cult of Donald Trump, and I think that's really the danger of him, to your point.
And I think what worries me, too, is we saw what happened with Cassidy Hutchinson in the January 6th committee hearings when she had a Trump-appointed lawyer. You know, they were paying for her legal fees at the very beginning, and they were trying to coerce her testimony to be in favor of Trump. And obviously, she did the right thing. She fired that lawyer, hired a new one who was actually representing her best interests, and she told the truth to the American people about what happened that day. So I hope that his employees do the same and look out for their best interests, not Trump.
Yeah, we will see, and perhaps there is still time for a lot of that to unfold. Everyone stick around for me. Coming up next, one of Trump's Republican